we're going to take a look and see how the software interacts with the mod. So I'm going to go ahead and close this out just to show you normal procedures and startup. So at the beginning of the day, typically what you do is you and we'll talk about how you do some startup and your shutdown procedures a little bit later, but once you start up your computer, or your printer rather, this is our Mod Queue Manager and our RIP software. So I'll just go ahead and click on the BelQuette Mod Queue Manager, and as you can see, it's sending information to the printer and the printer's feeding information back. So this is telling me my printer firmware version is Mod1 727TH. So basically, if we asked you what your firmware version is, you can just say 727. Don't worry about the Mod 1 or the TH. 727 is all I need, or all we need in our support department. And then also on the front panel, if you powered the system on, it would also tell you version 727. So what we have here is we have our pass mode. Our pass mode is basically single pass, rapid second pass, timed second pass, and manual second pass. And basically all that means is if your job has a single layer to it, then you can leave this on single pass. If it's in a double layer, if this is left on single pass, it's going to print one layer at a time. It'll print one layer, and the platen would come home. If you send if it was a two-layer job, so that it had white and it had color, it would actually send the platen in. It would print the first layer, which would be white, and the platen would home. Once the platen homes, you'd have to send the job in again for it to print the second layer. The rapid second pass is as soon as the first layer is printed, it's going to automatically go back in and print a second layer. So you don't have to tell it to go back in. Timed second pass, same thing, except it has a timer on it. So if you say 20 seconds, I want it to wait and then go back in. Or manual second pass. Basically, the manual is not something that we use often, but it is something that says, okay, well, this is a two-pass job. I want you to send in. You send it in, it's waiting for you to send the second. It knows there's a second layer ready to go. But technically, single pass can do the same thing, and we just a lot of times just leave second pass or single, rapid, or timed. Now, if you have a two-layer job, or rather, I'm sorry, if we have a single layer job and we have single pass, it will send it in and it will only print one layer. If you have rapid second pass selected or timed second pass, either of the two, and it's still a single layer job, it's not going to go in and print again. It's only going to print one layer because it's only a one-layer job. But if you wanted to print two jobs or two passes, and you had it on rapid second pass, and it's only color ink, down here you see two passes of color layer. We can click on that, and if we click on this, that means, okay, if it's in a rapid second pass mode, it's going to print the first layer, come back, and print it again automatically. And so if you do not have this selected, and it's only a single layer job, just in case you didn't want two passes, even if you have it in a second pass mode, it'll protect you from accidentally printing two passes. Our auto clean time is set to never. Some people like to have auto clean set on. This is basically, it will automatically do a head clean. It's a light cleaning, simple cleaning. So it'll do it however many hours you tell it. So in this case, let's say it was 4 hours. On the front panel, it would tell you there's an auto clean time that's on. But what it'll do is every 4 hours, it will clean the print head. Now this is 4 uninterrupted hours. So that means if you were 2 hours into it and you came back and you printed a shirt, the counter starts back to 4 hours. Or you can turn it on never. And if there is a sleep mode on the printer, you can also force sleep it. This will automatically go to sleep. I believe it's something like a half an hour of not being used. It will go to sleep, but the counter starts the moment you stop using the printer. So even a half hour into it, if it turns on, it'll be not 4 hours, it'll be 3.5 hours. Down here it tells you how many layers we've printed and how many total shirts we've printed. So it's just saying 5 layers, 5 total shirts. So this printer, just in some of the testing with the new firmware that we've updated, is saying, okay, there's only 5 layers, which basically means 5 total shirts. So that means, to me, that's only single color job or a single layer job. So it might be only light garments. But this does give you a running total. So if I had a 2-color job, or like a white and color, it'll say there was 7 layers, right? If we were just printing one more, it'd say 7 layers, a total of 6 shirts. So this just gives you an idea of how many shirts you've printed since this firmware has been installed. Up here we have auto height mode, and we have manual, semi-automatic, and automatic. Manual just basically allows the printer to detect if the platen is too high or low, but it does nothing about it. If the printer module rather is too high or low, the platen is stationary. So if the printer module is too high, it'll know it's too high, but it's going to just start printing. If the platen module is too low and you could get a head strike, it will not actually let you print. It'll stop it, and you'll have a red light on the auto height detect, but it won't release the job. So you'll manually move the platen or the printer up. Semi-automatic mode is pretty much, it's kind of the same thing, but it lets you interact with it, and then it continues on from there, whereas the manual mode, it's fully manual. And then your automatic mode is fully automatic. So you put the shirt on, it makes the adjustment whether it's too high or too low and sends it in. Again, auto height gap, this number, the lowest it can be is 15. And we can, if your gap is, let's say your print head is too close to your platen, and we've done this auto level, then we can increase this number to move the printer further away from the platen so you don't get a head strike. But normally this 15 is pretty good. Nozzle check pattern, that's what we did here. Earlier you saw we clicked nozzle check. Clean wiper, this will be at the end of the day, and we'll go over that during our maintenance. And then configuration. So configuration, let's just go ahead and change this to 24 3/4. Let me just reopen that. So what configuration is, this shows us the port that the system is on, which is COM200. We have our nozzle check queue. Now it's important that when we do nozzle checks, that this queue is set up to the Epson Stylus Photo R1800. Now sometimes this gets cut off and you can't see the full name. In Windows, oftentimes, depends on if you have a laptop or things get unplugged inappropriately, Windows can install the printers more than once. So if we look over in this mod printer here on our front section, we can see it says there's 6 queues found. That's saying there's 6 printers connected to this computer. So if I click on this, I can see in the order number 3, Epson Stylus Photo R1800. Now that's where I want to send all my nozzle checks to. The Epson Stylus Photo R1800 in this case is on number 3. Now earlier when we did the installation, it was gray, or when the printer grayed out and came back to life, I knew that this was the correct queue. Now the attached Epson printer. If it said copy 1, then I need to know which is the active printer. So in this case, this is the only R1800 in here, and I know it's on number 3. So we can say, well, here's number 3. So we didn't want to make this too much wider than what it already was. So we give you the ability to at least choose whatever's matched up down here. Our platen type in this case is an adult platen. Now this is the only reason why we have this on here is for auto height control. If the system has an obscure platen, then where it measures that makes a difference. So because we're using an adult platen, we're just going to change the platen type to adult. Our print position is how far the platen moves into the printer. So this moves in 24 3/4 inches. So if my print is off, like say a ½ inch, the top of the platen instead of 0 is negative ½ inch kind of scenario. So in other words, if in my RIP software, I put my image on 0 and it starts a ½ inch too soon, I can change the print position and say, well, I don't want the platen to go in as far as it's going in. I want it to come back a ½ inch. So I would subtract a ½ inch. So it'd be 24 1/4 inches. And the reason why these can be off is because the printable area defaults at 13 inch by 19 inch, but our platen is only 18 inches in height. So our print position is hard-coded, but we at least give you the ability to change the starting position if you ever needed to, if you had your own platen, anything of that nature. But in this case, we're just going to leave it as is. We have an advanced mode and a debugging mode. The advanced mode just simply opens up our Y position. So I can put a number in here, and 1,440 equals 1 inch. So if I change this to 1440 and hit move Y, it will move the platen in 1 inch. And it's just really a test more so than anything. So we'll go ahead and just turn that right back off. And our debugging mode, if something is happening that looks a little weird, we can say view debug, and this window pops up here. And as it's printing and doing things, there are little codes that show up here. So we may say, oh, you may tell us something's happening, and we say, well, let's take a look at, let's try to debug it. And that's really all that is. So these two features you typically don't need. A lot of times we do that internally, but we left them in there so that if it's in the field and there's something strange happening, you can debug and do an advanced mode very quickly and easily. All right, so we're going to go ahead and hit OK on that. In our mod printer, we have PowerRIP output Q1. This is what the queue is tied up, where we send all our files to. And it ties into the Stylus Photo R1800. Just like we showed earlier about the USB 001, these two are connected together. But we send all our files out of the RIP to this PowerRIP output Q1. So let's go ahead and open up our printer section in Windows just to kind of go over what this really means. So we're going to go to Devices and Printers. So here we have the Epson Stylus Photo R1800. Now we should also have a PowerRIP output Q1, but I don't see it here. Well, Windows 7 and beyond group the printers together that are on the same port. In this case, USB 001. So if I right-click on this, I can see little arrows next to all these selections. When I go over, I can see, oh look, there's the Stylus Photo R1800. And the PowerRIP output Q1. Now, these systems, when you do the installation as we did earlier, all these are set up appropriately for you. But I'm going to go ahead and open them up and show you some key features if you ever have to uninstall and reinstall manually, as opposed to letting the system do it for you, what the proper settings are. So we're going to go to Printer Properties. Let's go to the Epson Stylus Photo R1800 first. And I'm going to click on Advanced because the ports already tell me USB 001. But I'm going to go to Advanced. And right down here, all these features are already set up. Even when you do a manual install, these are fine. But what happens is under the Epson Stylus Photo R1800, this Keep Printed Documents will be checked. Well, we don't want it checked. Now, when we do the install, we make sure it's not checked. But if we manually install this printer, oftentimes it will check this for you. So we want to uncheck Keep Printed Documents. Now the reason why we do this is because the only thing we are printing to the Epson Stylus Photo R1800Q, if you recall, is our nozzle check. And so when we go back to our Mod Q Manager under Configuration, our nozzle check Q is the Epson Stylus Photo R1800. So what happens is, as soon as a nozzle check is sent to the printer, it sends it to this driver here and automatically deletes it out of the queue. Otherwise, if this was checked, it would retain that. So we don't want that. So we're going to go ahead and make sure that that's not checked. And of course, the driver is the Epson Stylus Photo R1800. All right. So that's basically what to look for there. And then on the printer properties for the output Q1, if you manually have to change this or install this, then these are what to look for. Under the advanced, the driver needs to be the Epson Stylus Photo R1800, and all three of these need to be checked on down below. So we want to keep the print documents here because we control it through our Mod1 manager. Now I'm actually going to delete this print queue, and I'm going to show you how to manually create it, because sometimes queues can get corrupted for whatever reason. If you send a print to it and it's not actually going to release the job, the queue could be corrupted, or the driver rather could be corrupted. So a lot of times what we'll have to do is we'll say see what's printing, open up the queue, make sure there's nothing in the queue, and we can delete it. Now, if there is anything in the queue, it's also going to be found here. And so we could go ahead and make those adjustments in here, delete all selected titles. But sometimes, again, Windows likes to hold on to jobs. I don't know why, but if there's any kind of locking of the job, we can come in here and manually remove it. So I'm just going in here just to make sure there is nothing here. I'm going to close the Mod1 manager because it's going to be looking for the PowerRIP output Q1. And if there's not one there, they'll probably throw an error. So I'm going to go ahead and go to delete print queue and delete the PowerRIP output Q1. Now sometimes your software, your virus software, will have a problem with our software because it's not widely spread like a Microsoft product would be. So because of that, sometimes it will isolate and delete things. So in this case, let's say it deleted this output queue because it didn't recognize it, and so it thought it might have been a virus, and it isolated it and removed it. Well, at this point, I'm missing this. So what I want to do is I'm going to open up our mod RIP. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and open that. Now you can see down here my error says, hey, there's no output queue. I can still use this software and everything else. But at this stage, I just want to show you, and we'll come back to the PowerRIP Mod1 here in a moment, but I want to show you how to recreate this output queue. So I'm going to go to Output tab, and I can see there's nothing here. I'm going to say Create New. I'm going to go PowerRIP. So it's capital P, lowercase o-w-e-r, capitals R-I-P, capital O, and then we type in Output, capital Q, and type in Q, space, and 1. Now I can change ports and everything in here, but I'm going to do that on the Windows side. So I'm just going to go ahead and hit Create. Now it tells me right here that the queue has been created. We're going to close that. And again, we're going to go right back here, and you can see now it's here. But because it's not on the same queue or port as this, now it's separated. So I'm going to right click on this, go to Printer Properties, and I'm going to go to Ports, and I'm going to change the port to USB 001. It's the same port as the Epson Stylus Photo R1800. I'm going to hit Apply, and then I'm going to go to the Advanced, and I'm going to go ahead here, and I'm going to say, because I want these other ones checked, keep printed documents, print spool documents first. And see my driver here, I also want to change this to the Epson Stylus Photo R1800 because we are using the Epson driver to drive the print. And we're going to hit Apply and OK. And I'm just going to refresh the page just to make sure, and you can see it's disappeared. So if I right click, you can see it's back here again. So again, you don't have to do this obviously upon install, but if for any reason it does get deleted, that's how you would do this. You would recreate it through the RIP. Okay, so let's go ahead and close. We'll bring this down here. I'm going to close our devices and printer section. I'm going to go back to the Mod1 manager. I'll just put it right here next to this. So now it's found everything. It's telling me my printer status or my idle at home. So we're okay there. Test AHD. If anything is happening where maybe the height doesn't seem to be right, we might tell you choose auto level, let it level itself, choose test AHD. On the front panel of the mod will be a number, and you can give us that number, and if it's off, then we can tell you how to fix that. But for the most part, like I said, all this stuff should be correct out of the box. Down here, we have our white layer, our color layer, how many copies we want, 2 passes of color, checked or not. We delete our selected title so we can populate however many jobs we want down here. Click on it, and then we can also delete all titles, everything in the entire RIP or the queue. We can delete everything and then refresh and clear counts. So we might have a list of jobs here, and if we hit refresh and clear counts, it'll count them all back to 1 and refresh them in a new state. So we're going to go ahead and take care of the software. And so let's close this out and let's reopen it just to get rid of that error. There was no queue. All right. So basically what we're going to do is, now that we've installed the RIP, we need to validate the software. Now this computer already had a validation. So, but in order to do that, what we would do is we go to Configure, Validate Software. See, it's grayed out, but this would be black, and Remove Validation would be grayed out for you. So we would say Validate Software. Now, once you go there, you're going to have a code. It's a 6-digit code. It's a user ID, rather. And so what we would do is go to the web, and we're going to open up, and this is all inside the box of the DVD. There's a card in there, and it's going to tell you where to go. So basically, we're going to go www.iproofsystems.com, and right up here we see Get Activation Code. We would choose that. We would choose in your language. We're going to go ahead and type in whatever we want. So we're just going to say Jared Hill, that's me. We're going to go add our company. And we're going to go to address. And we're going to just put in our address here. And email. And of course, as you say, just fill everything out as you need it. And we're going to go to Clearwater. Now they do want you to have the product code here. So I'm just going to go ahead and put this in here. Now I'm also going to copy this. I'm going to submit this. And I'm basically going to scroll down until I see the Mod1 logo. And then we're going to go to Validate. And what we'll do is we'll say Validate. And this product code, I'm going to paste right in there. Okay? Because that's the product code that I received. Now I'm going to say, please enter your user code. The user code will be found under this Validate Software. So we would choose Validate Software. The user code comes up, and then it's a 6-digit number. We would place that user code right here and hit Submit. When we do that, a window will pop up that has an activation code. And that activation code, I believe, is a 9-digit code. And then in that same window that has been open, we don't want to close this window until we're complete with this. So the Validate Software window will have a user code and an activation code. So you'll just place that 9-digit activation code that was in this software here, right here. And then we would basically say validate. And then that would tell you to restart your RIP. And then we would, after we restart the RIP, that would basically give you what you needed. Now, we've also talked about how to start the the RIP without rebooting the computer. And really the reason why you reboot the computer after installs, you know, so make sure all the processes and everything is operating and running. But basically there's a launcher, and the launcher is under the C drive PowerRIP mod. And you only have to, if you don't want to restart your computer after your install, you're going to want to run the launcher. If otherwise, once you restart your computer, this automatically loads for you. So we're just going to go down to the C drive, and I'm just going to go into launcher. And all this does is if you print it from Photoshop, Illustrator, any program you have, you want to print to the RIP, then this is watching for the RIP to receive a job. So your RIP doesn't even have to be open. And then once there's a job in there, it will automatically open the RIP. Oftentimes, though, we don't even use the print to feature. We do the print from feature. So the print to feature basically means printing to the RIP from whatever computer or program you're using, but the print from is printing from the RIP. And we have a lot more control when we print from the RIP. So let's go ahead and open up the RIP. And in here, basically what we have is just a very basic Windows, but we're going to say File, Print PostScript file. So these are files that could have been archived, create a print job. That was normally where we're going to go. Most of the time we're going to open this RIP, go File, Create Print Job. All right. And exit, of course. Under Configure, we have Configure Inputs, which just basically, all this is already automatically set up for you. But under the hot folders, you know, basically you should have a Mod1 hot folder. It tells you where that hot folder is, which is done upon install. It tells you what device, in this case the BelQuette Mod1, and what the output queue is, in this case PowerRIP output Q1. Under Configure PowerRIP Mod1 Printer Entities, if I click on this, again, it's just what links everything together. It's telling you what PPD to use, which is your printer document or definitions and so forth. It's telling me, hey, launch, you know, what application launch. So this is just all set up. There's nothing really. If something's not printing correctly for you, or you send a job, it's not printing, we might ask you, hey, let's open up this section and let's see if maybe everything is correct. If there's any missing elements, then something got corrupted. It could have been virus software removing things. And I'll show you, basically, all you want to do is in virus software, if you want to exclude files and folders, you can exclude, go to your C drive, this entire folder right here, PowerRIP Mod. If you exclude this entire folder, chances of virus software coming in and removing things are kind of slim. So we're going to go ahead and close that out. But anyway, the configure inputs right here is also this little button. So it's just a quick shortcut. Configure outputs is also right here in the little shortcut. And I showed you this window a little bit earlier. So that's how we would recreate it if we needed to. And then we have configure PowerRIP settings. So this, if you run the installer that I showed, then these are your settings. If you do not, then it will be delete completed documents after 4 hours. So you could have one job in there and say it takes you 6 hours to print that job. If this says 0 days and 4 hours, after 4 hours, it will automatically delete that job. So what we do is we add a full year. So you can manually remove or add whatever, how much time you want, but you can manually control it through the ModKey Manager. Thumbnails is just, it just shows if there's thumbnails, you show them or not, and enable your ink cost calculator. Okay, pretty simple. And again, our validate and remove. So removing the validation basically means I can remove an activation or validation on this computer. Now you get 3 validations with your purchase. So if you were to add a validation to one computer and add a validation to a second computer, and you want to take off a validation for one of those computers, you always have to go in reverse order. So whatever the last, let's say you're getting rid of the very first computer altogether, you would have to actually remove the last validation first and then your first validation. Because the way the licensing software works, it's a software-driven dongle as opposed to a USB dongle. The way it works, though, is it's always tracking that first validation. So you definitely need to reverse the order, and then you would just come back and validate again. But when you remove the validation, basically it's just a reverse. You go in, it gives you a removal code. You go back to the website, and you go into that section and remove wherever you need to remove. And you put in the user, your product code, your user code, and the removal code, and it'll add that activation back to your account. Under utilities, a lot of times we don't even mess with the edit density curve because these are all built in pretty good. But basically there's no reason to edit any of this. But it does give you the ability, we have more documentation on all this. If you were to go under your C drive and go to PowerRIP Mod, you can actually see under Docs, here is our mod manual, right? So this is the PowerRIP Mod manual here. So this will actually can go into a lot more detail in all of this if you were wanting to look at any of this any further. You can see it's quite a bit in depth. This even goes over what we've already went with the activation of the code and so forth. All right, and then this is a print from, so again, this is what we've talked about. So all of that is found right here in those documents. But basically, we'll go back to here, we'll go printer and ink configuration. So under the printer and ink configuration, we have printer and template select. We have our printers, we have loaded templates. Basically, we're doing no step and repeat. All of this, we do have additional videos on how to use this setup. But for now, it's going to default as your Mod1 printer, no step and repeat. So basically, we're controlling what platen size we have right here in the RIP. Ink configuration, your ink configuration type is color in white, standard order, which basically, here it says CMYK, but if you look at the ink lines on the printer, you'll see yellow, magenta, cyan, black, and 4 whites. And that's what is right down here. As you can see, it's grayed out. Yellow, magenta, cyan, black, and then these last 4 are white. A lot of times with this software, the way we have it set up is 93% on CMYK and 95% on white. The new controls, the older controls on white, we might do 65 to 75%, but we have new curves. So these are just standard settings, again, right out of the box. They work very well. Choke and feed. Now, again, we have additional videos on how to use all this, but basically, choke and feed give us the ability to choke your design so that if there's any white poking out anywhere, this will help get rid of that. Now, normally under, now I might have to change this if your settings don't show, if your settings show this, then chances are I'm probably going to change this. But if I do not, basically what I found that works really good just right out of the box is under choke and feed, we're going to go to color ink 1440, 1440 with a medium white density bidirectional. And so what that means is when I choose these settings here in the RIP, say I want these resolution settings, then this is my choke associated with those 3 settings. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this top, left, and right to -1. And the bottom, I'm just going to say 21, I believe. Now, what this basically means is -1 is a default number. I find that the default number for top, left, and right work really well. But what choke is and how to control it through here, this will never be a negative number except -1, which is not really a negative number. It might be 12. I'm not sure what that number is. It's hard-coded. It's been hard-coded for over 10 years. So really at this point, I typically try to use top, left, and right as a -1. Now what that means though is, let's just imagine the platen. Now if this is a platen, we're looking at the top of the platen is right here, and if whatever this outer number is, we can say it's an arbitrary number. Let's just say it's 100. On the left, top, and right, we can say this number is 100, and the very center of the platen could be 0. So when we actually increase this number, so let's just say from 0, or the higher the number we go, it actually goes to the center of the platen. So actually, I take that back. I was a little backwards. If the outer edge is 0, the center could be 100. So we go from 0 to 100. What that's doing is it eats the white ink away from the outer edge of the image. So as we increase this number on left, top, and right, it actually eats the image away. On the bottom, it actually shifts the image up and down, only the white layer. So these are in pixels, and basically, if I say the top of the platen, which is actually closest to you, if we increase this number, again, it's going to eat away at those pixels. The bottom number is shifting the white layer. So let's just say I do a -1 on top, left, and right, and everything looks really good, but I see some pixels on the white layer that's on the top of your image. Well, that means I need to slide that image down. So we're going to reduce this number, again, because the outer edge is 0, say the center is 100. So the more we reduce this number, the further away from the center it goes. So it's going to slide this white layer down. And so that's essentially what works pretty good. We're going to do 144720. We'll save these changes. And again, this is very similar. And I apologize because I thought I had these already set. And this number here is usually like a 12 or a 13. So we'll just say 12 on this one. Now this feed adjustment is not something we normally have to use. This is something that stretches or shrinks the design for alignment purposes. This usually works better for large prints, like on our original product, the FlexiJet, which had a 54-inch printable area. So a lot of times we leave feed adjustment on the mod at 0. Color spread is set to 2. It just takes the color and helps spread it beyond the white layer. And then our horizontal image offset. This is done in inches. So if we wanted to, we could say 1/4 of an inch. Because the image is a printable area of 13 inches, but our platen is technically 12 and 5/8, if we shifted this, we could shift it 1/4 of an inch if it was 12.5. But a lot of times we just do about -0.29. So it's actually shifting the starting position left to right on your prints. So we're going to go ahead and save those. And these are really the reason why I only changed these two, because when it comes to white ink, I typically only ever print 1440 by 720 on the color, or 1440 on the color. But medium density white ink is all you will ever need. I have never used heavy density. If you're not getting enough white ink in one pass, then we need to look something else. Heavy density is way too much, and light density is way too little. So I do medium density. Okay, so under step and repeat, this is where our templates are found. And we also have print nozzle check. That's not something that we typically use out of the rip. We control that through our Q manager. Or if you have a version earlier than 727 and you're running Windows 7 or earlier, well, actually any of them, we'll do it through the BelQuette utility here. So a lot of times we don't even bother with it right out of here. But our step and repeat is where our templates are found. So if I go and open up my template editor, I can see basically we have all this on our website. We have templates where you can download templates we've already created and you just bring them right in. But essentially how this works is you have a template and you have a platen. The platen, the template is the overall template, and the platen is the printable area. So if I said, well, I want to create a new template, I may call this, let's say, left chest template. And the size of the whole printable area is 1319. So that's what I'm going to call it. I'm going to say 1319. Hit OK. Right? So here's my left chest template. Now I also have an available platen. So if you were to create your own platens, or if you use ours, again, just go to our forums, BelQuette.com, go to, I think it's connect with us, and you can go into our forums, register for the forum, and you're going to find all our templates there. You can download them. It shows you how, there's a video how to install them, all the above. But in this case, what we're going to do is just say you built your own template, and you're like left chest. And you can use a full-size platen if you want. But we know that that full-size platen starts 0 at a ½ inch, because this is 19. Our platen is 18 tall. So what we would say is left chest, and we want to add a platen. So we're going to go platen, create new, and I'm going to call this left chest. Now you don't have to have a real left chest platen created for this. This could just be your placement for your left chest if you wanted. So we would say size is, let's just say, 5 inches wide. And our height might be 3 inches, or let's say 4 inches. All right? We call it left chest. So if I go down here to left chest, I just double click. It says, okay, now where do you want to place it? X and Y. So X is left to right, Y is up and down. Now I know my left chest I just created was 5 inches wide. So if I start at, and I want to end it, near the edge of the platen, let's say it's 13 inches wide, and I know I'm about 12.5 inches, so let's say it's 1/4 of an inch. I know the edge of this platen is 12 3/4. Minus 5, because the width is 5, so that's 7 3/4. But let's say I don't want to go all the way to the edge, so let's start it at 7 1/4 or 7 1/2. And how far do I want to go down? Let's just say 2.5 inches. And we're going to give it a label of 1. So this right here now is my printable area for my left chest. And I'm just going to save. So now my left chest platen is saved. And now when I go to choose a platen, which we'll do a little bit later, I could create this left chest platen, or just choose this, pull my image in, it will automatically place it in the left chest area for you. And again, this is all just different areas, and we do have addendums on this as well. But basically, that's the simplicity of it. Go ahead and save that and close it. And then, of course, About. We might say, hey, what version are you running? Just go to About and then choose PowerRIP Mod1 build 745A B44R. So I might say, hey, what version are you running? Just say 745A B44R. So that's pretty simple. Now, one other area, we have our status messages, incoming jobs, process jobs, and pages to printer. So this might have been carried over from the install. But basically, with our status message, anything that's happening is going in here, and a lot of times there's a bunch of gibberish. You may not understand it, but if there's anything that fails, we might say, hey, what's the status message for this or that? Once the job comes in, it just comes in here, and once it sees a job in here, it moves to process jobs and processes the job. Once it's complete, it goes to the pages to printer, and then you're ready to print, which will also show it here in our Mod Queue Manager. Oh, that's basically the RIP. And again, we've already went over with the BelQuette utility. And again, we'll go over this information a little bit later as we perform our maintenance. Okay, so let's go ahead and bring a job in. So what I want to do is I'm going to go to File, Create Print Job. Now we have a window. This window is basically our job window. So I'm going to go ahead and say File, Import a Graphic. And let's see if I can find something real quick. So we have pretty cool image there. Yeah, we'll just choose this one. All right. So something to be said about the artwork. The artwork, this is all, usually the minimum we want is 150 dpi at full size using an RGB profile with a transparent background. We save these as PNG files because we get a lot of good control that way. So when I bring the image in, I can resize it, make it larger, smaller, what have you. But again, it's best to try to bring them in at full size. So if I'm going to bring this down, let's just say, you know, an inch. I'm looking at this corner right here, or this one right here. I'm going to kind of line that up with my 1-inch grid. And then over here, you can also see it says Y, but you can't type in. You can type in, but it doesn't move it for you. So it's just something that is more of a visual than anything. So anyway, it doesn't have to be exact, but let's just say I move it in right around an inch. If I hit center horizontal, it's just going to center this left to right for me. All right. Now again, we have 0 to 13, 0 to 19. But because our platen size is 12.5 by 18 or 12 5/8 by 18, I want to make sure it's within that printable area. Now, again, we can choose and create our own platens, make them the 12.5 by 18 and so forth, but oftentimes it's just as simple as quick to just bring it in for an adult size print. Under here we have print settings. These are all already set for you, and basically what we want to do is go look up here to the predefined settings. So under here we can see that I have quite a few to choose from. Now there's some other ones. What we did was try to simplify the names. Now if you end up with any more in here than certain ones, we can actually eliminate those. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to settings and say manage settings. And I'm just going to delete anything with 1440 or 720 in the title. And all this is going to do is just help keep it clean for me. And instead, we're going to use the other, a little bit better descriptive. So we're going to go color ink only, white and color ink, and white ink only. So in this case, we're going to want white and color because we're going to print this on a black shirt. So what we would say is white and color ink. We want high quality production mode, or production mode. High quality production mode takes longer to process, but you still get a really good design or a good print. High quality, obviously it's just a higher quality mode. And oftentimes I use high quality mode whenever I'm using solid colors. High quality production mode gives you a high quality visual for like a lot of photos and things like that, but it prints it more in the production mode. And of course, production mode. And again, this high quality production mode takes longer to process. And again, we just have production mode. And almost all the time, I would do white and color ink production mode. Now, in a situation like this, where there is quite a bit of detail, I'm just going to go ahead and do white and color ink high quality. Now, once I choose that, all my settings in here are already selected for me. All right, so I don't really have to do anything in here. But what I do want to do is generate my white layer. So I'm going to go to preview just to look and see what it looks like on a black t-shirt. You know what? I need to generate my white layer. So I'm going to go to white ink control. And under white layer generation, I have quite a few options of how to generate that white layer. The simplest, most effective, and accurate way to generate a white layer is if you have a transparency background. That's why we advocate that you would design your images with transparencies. So what I can say is use transparency to detect background and hit create. So now I can see what it looks like on a black shirt. Up here under my view, I can say there's my white layer, which is reversed out. So wherever it's black would be white. Here's my color layer, and then what it would preview on a dark garment. Now I can change the material color, let's say to red, anything like that. It kind of, and that's just visual. Down here, it's nothing more than visual. Okay. Now, under the white layer generation, it's also good to note that we have ink density and contrast. We zero these out. We basically profiled this to be pretty good across the board with these 0. Now, if I want to increase my ink density, I can. If I want to drink my contrast, I can. So if I go to my white layer and I can see some of these gray areas. Let's just take the density all the way up, hit create, and you're going to see everything darkened. Or we can take it the reverse, go all the way down. You can see everything lightened. All right, so we can go back to normal. Under contrast, this is really good if you have a lot of images that would stand out really well with contrasting. It kind of gets rid of some of your midtones. And again, reduce it the opposite way. It's the same thing. The only thing is, though, visually, it's better to try to do this type of thing in your artwork as opposed to here, because this is more of a hit and miss. You can get an idea if you're trying to do some smoke fades into black. We do have a use background color black to give you that ability, but we might increase our white ink to, let's say, 10, and our contrast maybe half of our white, so 4 or 5, somewhere in here is fine. And then you hit create, it'll take that black background, drop it off, and help mellow the fade into the black very well. But again, in this case, we're just going to use transparency to detect background, hit preview. Now, our white ink under black, what we can see is we have areas that could have black ink. Down here, we have black ink removed only because I had this other one selected. So if it's on a black shirt, you can remove the black ink. It helps integrate the image into the design a little bit better. Let's say you're on a red shirt, well, you don't want to remove the black ink. You want that black to continue to print. So let's go ahead and let's not remove it, and we can see all this black in here. Now this white ink under black is set to 0%. So what that means is anywhere there's black, it's not going to print white ink under it. If you print white ink under black, it does have a tendency to shine up the black. It doesn't look as nice. It looks more like a transfer. So oftentimes we'll just have that turned off. But if we wanted to, for any reason, put that white ink under black, we can put 0 to 100%. And you can see now, all of a sudden, all this white is in here. Now down here under this black detect threshold, it says, okay, well, what level of black do we want to say this is truly black, right? So I'm saying, okay, I jacked it up to 100%. So it's only looking for 100% black to determine if we're going to put white under it. Or I could bring this down and say, well, how about 91%? So if there's a 91%, it treats it as 100% black, and it'll put whatever percentage of white you want under it. It's the same difference with you removing the black ink. It does the same thing. So the higher we remove it, the less tolerance there is. The lower, the more tolerance there is. So you'll see we start to lose some of the detail in wherever the image is. So it's looking anywhere for black that it can find it, and it's trying to remove that black under there. So what we're going to do, though, is we'll just go ahead and set this back. A lot of times this black detect threshold works pretty good right around 96, 97%. Anywhere in there is fine. We're not going to remove it. Just turn this all back. We're not going to put white ink under it. We're just going to go ahead and get back to normal. So there's our color and our white. We have auto white highlight features as well. It's something that we don't typically use. We find that it prints so much white ink it's not normally necessary, but you can create white highlights as well. And it will give you the ability to add that white to your design, just the highlights areas. So again, we see our white, our color, our preview, and we hit print. So I'm going to go ahead and just show you once again. But this time I'm just going to do it much quicker. So we're going to go File, Import, Just going to bring in here. Anything over the platen size will resize, so we're just going to manually resize it ourselves. So again, I'm just going to position it here, and then I'm going to go back up to white and color, high quality, little white ink control, create under use transparency to detect background, hit OK, and print. So you see it doesn't take very long once you understand the process. So now what it's doing, it's going to go ahead and render the layers. So currently it's creating the white layer, and as we can look over here in our Mod Key Manager, we can see it's spooling the white layer. At this point, we can actually start printing now that it's spooling. I'm going to wait though, because I'm going to show you how the Mod Key Manager works by adding additional jobs. Okay, so as soon as this is complete, let's go ahead and look for another image. So we have, let's take a look while that's processing. I've got this cool image in here, so we'll do that one. So we'll just go ahead and also while we're at it, while that's also waiting, let's go ahead and look for any kind of virus software. And I may or may not have access to this because it's a okay, we're in trial mode. Okay, that's fine. So basically out of here, that's where we would try to find and all these virus softwares are different, but basically if I would try to find where I would get not to scan certain folders, I would just kind of have to dig in a little bit and try to find out. So in here under settings, I found exclusions, and then I can hit browse, open up this C drive, and click that folder right there. So in this case, when it would do a scan, it would exclude this folder, so we're not worried about trying to find that it has a tendency to isolate files and remove them, and all of a sudden your RIP is not working properly. So anyway, back under our printer and ink configuration, we went back to ink configuration. It's saying $280 a liter, and we did all this choke and feed. So when we put these numbers in here, we can see our ink cost right here is $1.18. Now if I go to my first status message, I can scroll all the way down after this job is complete, and I can look for this data right here. So what this has done is it's saying, okay, my ink usage for my color are set at 93%, like what we showed. And it's saying I have 18 cents in color ink. Now I can total this up, and I can say, it actually tells you how much each color is using. But I can total this up and say how many milliliters of ink I'm using for this print job as well. Now on the color side, it's not as crucial information as what can be done here with the white. So we're saying the white ink layer is 99, almost it's $1, and it's using 3.56 milliliters of ink. So if I was to use only white, trying to calculate how much white ink I need for this job, so let's say it was 250 shirts, which is quite a few shirts to print, but it's possible, and I know people who have done much more than that. But if I want to calculate how much white ink I'm using, I'm going to go 3.5622, so we're going to say 250 times 3.5622 milliliters. That's 890 milliliters. So 1 liter of ink is what you would need to complete this job. So that's what's kind of nice about this. If you do have big orders and you're not sure you have enough ink, you can come in here and calculate how much ink it's going to use just for the job. And that gives you that ability. So let's go ahead and go back to create a print job. Now, remember we went File, Import Graphic. We can also drag and drop. So if we just go back to the folder here, and let's just do this Wonder Woman image. I'm going to drag and drop that in there. Now let's just make this a little bit bigger, just for sake of how much, just to show how much it would cost. So we're going to just move it back in place, go center horizontal, and we're going to go white ink or color ink. Well, in this case, I want to say print it on a white shirt. So we're going to say color ink. We could go high quality photo, high quality production mode, high speed 2-pass, or production mode. High speed 2-pass is going to print it fast, but it's going to do 2 layers. Production mode is most of the time what we use when it comes to color ink only. And some of these settings here should basically be pretty good representation with vibrancy and so forth. But in this case, that's what we would do, is choose this. But we don't have any white layers to generate or anything like that, so I'm just going to hit print. So because it's a lower res file compared to our high quality mode, you can see it's actually processing much faster. When we look over here, we can see, hey, wait a minute here. Here's this Wonder Woman picture, and our robot girl's the first one. Now, when I select on here, I can look on the left-hand side. On the RIP, it tells us what our jobs are, right? On the right-hand side, it's telling us, if I click on Robot Girl, you see how it groups both layers together. Wonder Woman is only a single layer job, so it's only bringing that job into the color side. So what I want to do is, let's say I wanted to do 5 of these, and I do 3 of these. So what would happen is after 3 shirts of this Robot Girl, it would automatically advance to the Wonder Woman picture, the title. But let's say, oh, wait a minute here, you know what? I really don't want to print this Robot Girl. So I'm just going to go, if I go to my pages to printer, and this shows me what's in the print queue. My process jobs shows me all the jobs that have been processed. These will stay in here if I remove them from here or over here, and they'll stay in there for those 365 days plus 4 hours that we showed in the back. Now, if I go to my process jobs and I remove it here, it will actually remove it altogether from the RIP and out of here. But since this Mod Queue Manager is designed to manage the queue, I'm going to choose it out of here, and I say delete selected title. If I say delete all titles, it'll remove everything. If I say delete selected title, it will remove only that job from my pages to printer. It does not remove it from the process jobs. But let's say, hey, wait a minute here, you know, I made a mistake. I really need to print that job. Then I can double click on this. It shows layer 1, layer 2. I just hit reprocess job, hit OK, and it will process that same job exactly like I had it before all over again. And you can see it's moving to my pages to printer and it's starting to spool. So again, we could say, well, I want 8 of those, and you know what? On the Wonder Woman, I only need 1. And so that's basically how we would do that. So at this point, we can go ahead and start doing some printing and show how everything interacts from the Mod Queue Manager side to the printer side.